Linux is a free operating system like Windows, and it was written by programmers for programmers in contrast to both Windows and Mac OS, which were written for the average consumer. Using Linux is like having to know how a car works to actually drive the thing. The majority of drivers, like the majority of computer users, don't know what size engine they have, the gear ratio of the differential, or even how many quarts of oil it takes. They get in, turn the key, and it starts. This is only the tip of the iceberg. So, what caused Linux to fail? Here are the top 10 reasons why Linux remains a failure. 1. Linux isn't pre-installed. No matter how much it may debate it, having Windows pre-installed on PCs means that's what people are likely to end up using. In order for someone to move over to Linux on the desktop, there must be a clear reason to do so. There is the problem. Most of the time users switching over to Linux from Windows comes down to frustration with Windows or a desire to advance skills into an IT field. 2. Linux freedom versus convenience. It's been an experience for many that people expect a user experience that's consistent and convenient. How one defines this depends on the individual user. For some, it's a matter of familiarity or perceived dependability. For more advanced PC users, a consistent convenience may mean a preferred workflow or specific applications. The greater takeaway is that when people are aware of other operating systems, they will usually stick with that they've used the longest. This presents a problem when getting people to try Linux. When using a desktop platform for a long time, you develop habits and expectations that don't lend themselves well to change. 3. Linux lacks legacy software. Expanding on the idea of convenience, another challenge is enticing those who have legacy applications only found on Windows. Even if considering Linux-specific software alternatives are suggested, users are expected to change existing workflows. However, most people is resistant to this. Not because one type of application is better or worse than another. After all, this is a matter of personal perspective. No, the real issue is that users have existing workflows, file types, and overall application expectations. Switching away from this doesn't always go all that well. 4. Linux networking isn't for the faint of heart. Networking in Linux is reliable, however, it's reliant on understanding the differences between Windows and Linux networking. In Linux, both Samba and NFS file sharing are CONF file-based. And while it's not difficult to learn, it's not going to be as straightforward as you might find with Windows. On the flip side, connecting to the network itself is incredibly simple. Wired or wireless, modern Linux distros handle connecting to a network in a seamless manner. But it's unfortunate that even with the most newbie-friendly distros, one needs to drop to a command prompt to create a Samba password or edit a CONF file for an NFS share. 5. Linux video card support is tricky. From a basic perspective, graphics card support works just fine in Linux. However, things become a bit muddled when you bundle in Wayland versus X. Two different display server options mean different benefits and downsides when choosing one versus another. Some distros use Wayland as the default, which means some X-reliant applications won't work. Then there are the laptops with shared graphics. Laptops with NVIDIA, Intel graphics tend to be the biggest challenges with some Linux distros. This is found to be one of the most common issues facing newer Linux users. Granted, graphics switching has gotten a lot better over the years. But it's still distro dependent, and sometimes upgrades can throw new issues into the mix. Lastly, there is the issue of choosing the right driver type. In some distros, an FOSS-friendly driver is set by default. But in other distros, a proprietary option is the default. On the surface this doesn't seem like an issue, but it does add to some confusion. 6. Linux Pulse Audio Sound Server is confusing. Linux Audio is actually pretty good. However, the Pulse Audio Sound Server sitting on top of the audio architecture is out of touch and out of sync. If you're going to layer a sound server on top of ALSA, make sure it syncs up its adjustments between sound server and architecture. Making matters worse is the fact that most popular desktop environments don't fully take advantage of what Pulse Audio has to offer. Most desktops lack recording and playback tabs in the volume control settings. When you launch a Hangouts session or play music, you might wish to route said audio to different playback devices. With most distros, this requires you to use PayDevChooser. 7. Linux lacks AAA gaming titles. Linux gaming has come a long way. Thanks to Valve, GOG.com and others, Linux gaming has evolved tremendously in recent years. The title availability and desire from developers to include Linux in their operating support has been fantastic. That said, there is still a lot of improvement to be had with Linux gaming. 8. Linux desktop environments. As much as some love the choice presented with Linux on the desktop, it is apparent how some people might feel overwhelmed. It can be challenging to select a specific distro based on a desktop environment. So being able to choose and discover new desktop environments is exciting. It can absolutely be confusing for some newcomers. The reason for this is most people are coming from the limited world of Windows or OS X. You have a release, and that's what you get. There is no choice, unless you wish to use an older release of those proprietary OS. 9. Linux distros vary in quality. Most popular Linux distros are fantastic. Unfortunately, there are distros that are less than fantastic. Some of them are downright bad. Without labeling some and leaving out others, suffice it to say that it's not enough to merely choose a distro based on popularity. 10. Linux is overshadowed by Chrome OS. Chrome OS is an incredibly limited OS yet has gained in popularity thanks to cheap, easy-to-use laptops and its deep integration into Google services. Unfortunately, printing and scanning remain a problem with this operating system. Yes, it is possible, but only by jumping through hoops. Despite this, Chrome OS is built on Gentoo Linux, and it's possible that this is the closest Linux will ever come to being a mainstream desktop operating system.